Greetings and welcome back to CS195 Web Development. We're on week 4, more HTML tags. So remember before we just kind of finished up file structures, but all of last week was CSS. The rest of this week is going to really kind of focus on a couple more tags. And then even the CSS grouping elements that you see down there, it's still going to be HTML tags to prep us for more CSS. All right, so that's kind of, we're going to a couple more tags, and then we're going to learn some grouping element tags. So when we go down to the rest of the CSS, we'll have a little bit more knowledge. But if you look at this thing, file structure is what we did last class. We learned it, so we want to know which file is used by default when a web server is there, right? Remember, so if you got to think back to that, where we have all the folder structures, you have your public, and then everything inside of there is your main web page, and you have subfolders, which you can make other web pages or just hold files, like if you have a pick folder. But if you go into a folder, what's the file name that's going to, and there's a few of them technically, but say one of those names, go. All right, again, just think about it, whatever you can. Hopefully you came up with index.html, and we see that all the time when we do our con. The answer was sitting here in front of us the whole time, index.html. Also, there's like home.html, default.html. Depending on the server, there's all those other options. But the good old standard is index.html. That will work for most web servers. So with that, we kind of went over all the fun file systems and how you're able to, and we can use files in here as well if you want to as we go through and we start having multi-site pages. But again, hopefully you're building most of your stuff in that 00 web host and you're really seeing how it works, because that's why we're using it. That's a really, really slim version of what the industry uses, but it's almost exactly like what I use to build my web pages. But today is HTML links. These are links that take you to another page. So our objective is to understand how we add this link. It's very similar to a picture, especially when you're pointing to a whole other page. But even if you have internal links, it's still very similar to a picture. You have to tell it where it's going. At the end of the lesson, you'll be able to use the con challenge to demonstrate you can use a link. Our success criteria is students will demonstrate adding a link tag along with the proper attributes, and remember back to the image tag, you're going to have a bunch of attributes, into the correct location in HTML. So again, bottom line is you're going to be able to put a link to wherever you need to go onto the web page. Now we're going to watch the con video. There is a few things to take note of, so again, be looking for what the tag is, because amazingly enough, it's not the link tag. What the attribute is, the most important attribute is, and then kind of how does it work, because this confuses a lot. There's some similarities to images, but a lot of students get confused about how this works. So we're going to watch the con video, pay attention to how this works, because we're going to try it out as well.
You've already learned a bunch of HTML tags, but do you know what HTML actually means? Well, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. You know what a markup language is now. It's a way of using tags to mark up content. But what does hypertext mean? It's actually a phrase that was invented before the internet even existed, in the 1960s, to mean text that's connected to other text that the reader can immediately jump to. Tim Berners-Lee invented HTML and other ingredients of the internet, like HTTP, to be a way to connect text to other texts located anywhere in the world. How do we connect web pages to other web pages in hypertext markup language? With a hyperlink, of course, which we usually just call a link now. How do we make a link in HTML? This is where it gets weird. You might think that we'd use a link tag, but actually that's used for a different sort of link in HTML.
And we'll go over the link tag because it is used, but it's more like a reference link. It's like whatever you link here, that will be used by the web page. So we'll see this again when we get into a little bit more advanced CSS. So again, like I mentioned, the link tag is not actually used to create a hyperlink.
Instead, we use the A tag, where the A stands for anchor.
All right, right off the bat, what do you notice? it has a closing tag. All right, so again, that's why here's an image tag right below it. This has a closing tag, and this is an important concept that I want you to think over and over again. I'm going to mention it, she's going to mention it, we're going to go through it again. Whatever you put inside of here is what you click on. I mean, that's how tags work, right? You wrap it around, and that's inside the tag. So in this case, whatever you put inside of here, whether it be words or an image, you could put the beginning A tag up here, the closing A tag at the bottom. Whatever is inside of here is clickable, and if you do that, you'll make the whole entire web page clickable. Anywhere you click is thing. So again, notice that that's how it works. So I mentioned I might have you put an image inside of an A tag or make an image clickable. You just simply take the image and put it in all the image tag. You simply take the image and put it inside of that, and it's going to be a link. So I want you to pay attention to how these links work. That's really important, because I see all the time, like, how do I make it clickable? I'm like, well, you didn't put anything inside of here. Also, you notice right now it doesn't actually look like a link. She's going to get to that real soon.
It's anchoring the link in the page at a certain location and connecting that anchor to a different web page. To make a link, we have to write the tag, but we also have to decide on the text of the link and then the address that the link goes to. Let's make this link to a page with more information about the birth of the web. So the text of the link will go inside the start and the end tag. So I'll stick my cursor in here and write, read more about the history of HTML. Okay, so now we can see that text looks like a link, but it's not going anywhere yet. We need to add an address. We don't actually want the address to show up on the page, but we still need the browser to know what it is. So we put it inside an attribute on the A tag, and that's the href attribute. What does href stand for? I will give you a hint. You have seen that H a lot. It stands for hyper reference. Now I'll paste in the address, which we also call a URL.
All right, again, one more time, attribute equals quotes. Every single time, attribute equals quotes. That's what you want to do when you're creating a link. Attribute equals quotes. Don't forget it. In this case, it's href equals quotes. She did it right away, and that's when she starts putting in the link.
Do you notice how this URL starts with HTTP?
Again, it starts with HTTP, right? And if you actually go up here and double click, you can see that that's what links start with, or HTTPS in this case. But the same concept, that's how they start. And we'll get into the difference of not having that, because remember we talked about pictures. We just had our whole entire lesson on file structure. If you have a folder called topics or home or whatever like that in your 00 web host, it can go to that. Again, we'll show that in a minute, but do notice that is another key point when you're doing the href, is this link. And notice now that it looks like a link because they have href, when you click on it, will take you to this web page. Whereas, again, if you don't have that, you might see something like, if we're building something in our web page, this is in the topics folder, in the birth web folder, look for the index file. Again, just a reminder of how we did that with the folder structure lesson.
Guess what that H stands for? Hyper. HTML is all about the hyper. This URL specifies everything the browser needs to know to find the web page, the protocol used for finding it, the domain it's on, and the path that it's located in on the server. Since it specifies everything, we call this an absolute URL. On some web pages, you might see URLs that start with just slash in the path. That tells the browser to stay on the current domain and just look for a different path on that domain. That's called a relative URL. We use them all over Khan Academy when we link between our content. You should stick to absolute URLs in the web pages that you make here to stay on the safe side. We can also tell the browser where to open the page, the current window or a new window. To tell the browser to open a link in a new window, we'll add another attribute, target. Target equals this _word_blank. Now, I want you to pause this talk through and try clicking the link.
All right, so I don't want to click on the first one because it goes inside of it. It's going to have all the information. But this is going to be important for Trinket as well. When we do our practice in Trinket, that target blank is important because these are web pages inside of web pages. When you do your actual zeros or web host, she's going to go over rule of thumb to remind you, but basically the rule of thumb is if it's inside your web page, like if you're just going from your home page to your about page, you're not going to open a new tab. But if you go from your home page to information about the wiki on something, that's going to be a target blank. So I'm going to click on this so you can see it, and look, that's what it does. It still gives you this warning, but it opens up another web page. So you can double click on or click it again, and it'll actually take you to this location. So I'm not going to go there. That's what target blank goes. If you don't have target blank, it still automatically does that here. But I'm going to show you what that looks like in Trinket. So when we go to Trinket and try this out, that's going to have a different effect. By default, they try to take you to another web page because, again, it's a web page inside a web page. Trinket's going to try to open it inside of the web page. And there's some sites, as we're going to find out, that don't really like it that much.
Go ahead. I'll wait. Clicky. What happened? You probably saw a warning about the link being from a user-generated web page. And then if you clicked OK, the link opened up. That's because we treat links a little special on the web pages made here because we don't want users thinking that links are specially endorsed by Khan Academy and then landing on a scary, unexpected website. So every link that you make here will have that warning and every link will pop up in a new window. That means that I could actually delete this target attribute since it's getting set behind the scenes too.
For Khan Academy.
Or I could leave it in case I want to move this HTML off of Khan Academy one day and make sure that link still opens in a new window. When should you use target? Generally, if a link is going to another page on the same domain, it should open in the same window. And if it's going to a page on another domain, it should open a new window. Okay, enough of that blabbing. Let me show you something else neat about links. We can link more than just text. We can also link images or text and images. Here, we have this image, which is this picture of Tim Berners-Lee. So I'm going to actually cut it and paste it so it's inside this link here.
All right, so you remember when you hover over a link, it turns into a thumb, well, a finger, like a hand. Notice now the picture is also clickable. All right, so again, anything that you put inside of it, if I were to take this and put it up at the top of the body, now if you, oops, it didn't grab the bracket. Of course. And this is going in circles. Stop it. I just want you to put that there. There we go. Okay. So let's try this one more time. Yeah, there you go. It turned everything into a link for us. Everything is a link. So that is, again, anything that's in between this tag and the closing tag is going to be clickable. Let's go ahead and try this out. She doesn't say much more. We also want to see what it looks like with different pieces. So full screen, font that you can see. All right, let's add the link. If you remember, it's not the link tag, it's the A tag. So A tag. Whatever we type inside here is what's going to be clickable. So click me or else. Shows up. It's not clickable yet. In fact, it's not even blue or underlined. That's fine. Go inside of that first tag. Remember, this is how you do attributes. Inside that first tag, hit space. I'm going to hit a few times so you can see it okay. So you don't need to do it a few times. Just one space will do. But inside of that first tag, href equals quotes. Remember, attribute equals quotes. Now let's show you what happens when we just type in Google, spell it right, google.com. All right. Again, it's a link. It is a link. You can see that it's a link, but when I click on it, it goes nowhere, right? It doesn't go to Google. Again, remember, without that HTTPS, it's looking for another file. So if you had this in the folder on your 00 web host or your web server, whatever you have, it's going to look for a folder, and we can see this real quick. If I go over here, now again, we should call these .html, but it doesn't care. If I call this google.com, hacked you. We go back over here and we click on this click me or else. Because this doesn't have HTTPS, it's going to look for a file called google.com. So I click it. I hacked you. It worked. Now again, probably should call this google.html because that would be what a real file. And then if you want to actually link this to a file in your system, and again, it takes you to the same thing as well. And this is what I'm talking about. You need syntax, but unfortunately, sometimes it will just work for you, right? But you're getting tested on being able to do this, not being able to do this. So do make sure, sometimes it will try to figure it out for you, other times it won't. But let's go ahead and change this back to google.com and add our https://. And now this is going to try to open up Google, but it's, again, just like the last one, it's going to try to open it up inside of this site. So I click on it, and then Google refused connection. Google's like, nope, I don't like being a web page inside of a web page. So I don't know what one does. Try a couple real quick. Yahoo doesn't like it either. Most of them don't. Most web pages don't like being inside of another page. There you go. This wiki, whatever it is, this wiki right here is okay. And you can see it's a web page instead of a web page. But what if you want to, say, open another tab? Now, this is going to be the last thing we go over, because as soon as we do this and I click on it, it's going to take me somewhere else. So again, remember, if you want to go outside to the web, HTTPS. If I just had wiki.com here, then it's going to look for a web page called wiki.com, which we don't have, so it doesn't do anything. So let's go ahead and make this go to a separate page. Again, because wiki.com is not part of ours. Google.html is, but not wiki.com. So target equals quotation marks, right? Attribute equals quotes. And then we do underscore blank. Why there's an underscore there, I have no idea. But someone thought it'd be a good idea. So when we click on this, again, I told you, jump me out of here. This is what it does. It took me to a completely separate web page. That is how links work. So with that, you have your practice, your challenge, your con challenge to show you know what you're doing, and then your journal entry. Have a great night. We'll see you next lesson.